All right, Kristin, episode number 13. How's your week?
Oh, it
It's
was
a
a
big
great
1-3.
week. 13, unlucky 13. I don't know. It's how you look at it, though. Maybe you got to force your perspective.
I might need some of that.
I know, because my week, I have a feeling, went a little bit better than your week. Although you had a good week up until, was it yesterday?
No, actually, it was Tuesday. So
Okay.
I had a great weekend because I was in Las Vegas and we
Mm-hmm.
got to spend some time together. A lot of work done
Lot.
on Sunday, which is not work when you're doing something that you love and the time just flies. And then I was out Tuesday morning getting my usual walk, and I caught an uneven sidewalk.
Uh,
Gravity and age being what they are, was not able to catch myself before falling, and I have this gorgeous black eye. So there you have it. Now, some
oh,
people, if I'm being honest, are asking if Sidewalk was Lindsay's childhood nickname. She had nothing to do with it. She's been nothing but kind and caring and supportive and insisting that I go and get it checked out, which I did, and
yep.
everything was fine. But
Good.
yeah, that was a fun way to kick off the start of the week. But it's all good.
Glad you're here. Glad nothing serious happened. Glad that you have Lindsay there to take care of you. And yeah, thanks so much for coming out this past weekend. It was so fun having you and Lindsay out. Got to spend a lot of fun time exploring Vegas and getting a lot of work done for the Wisdom of Walt. And we're super excited for some of the fun things that we have planned
We
for
do. And bonus, my sister even came over for dinner.
That's
You got
right.
invaded.
Oh my God, I had the whole family. Well, almost. I had enough of them. I had just the right amount
More
of
than
your
enough.
family. Oh, it's so fun. You know, whenever you're in the same room with everybody that's got kind of the same mission, which is to, step out of their comfort zones, lead by example, help encourage others around them. It's great. It's great to have those kind of
Well, and
friends.
I got to say, when we arrived in Vegas, we didn't kick it off at a casino or, any of the other typical, touristy style stops. We went to your place of work, which of course is a middle school.
Yep.
And the second we stepped on campus, those kids went nuts. They love you. So thank you for bringing me back to junior high, which I swore I would never go back to.
Same.
And I asked the kids about that, and they were like, why not? So you're doing something right. I hated junior high or middle school, and your kids love it because it's obvious that they love you. And I had an opportunity to bring a little bit of the wisdom of Walt and a little bit of the Disney magic
Yep.
to their assembly and to their afternoon. And then, like you said, we worked on Sunday. Here we are again. It's been an interesting week of virtual events. I had a virtual event on Tuesday, another one last night. Just jumped off a webinar, which we'll talk about when we get to my Wednesdays with Walt. And busy is good because it keeps me off the side.
Absolutely. Seeing you at my school, even just out in the parking lot as I watched you guys drive in, it really was the title of my Mondays on Main Street this week. It really was a moment of full circle. And what I love is, we haven't really gone too deep into how you and I met, but magical is the only word that can kind of come to mind. And when you break it down, it really wasn't magic. It was just a couple strangers talking and connecting and exchanging business cards. And actually, we didn't exchange it because I didn't have one. When you're an English teacher, you don't have business cards. You have papers to grade. That's all I have in my car. But you extended your business card, and I had made some wisecrack joke about how, I'm just an English teacher, because we were at, where else? The home of Walt Disney himself, a private mansion that had private events. You can't just roll up to Walt's house on Woking Way in Las Feliz and take a tour. It's usually,
I don't know if anyone could, it would be you, Kristin.
well, I might know a
I
few
couldn't
people.
knock on the door and get in. They'd let you in half a heartbeat. I'm convinced.
Well, it's one of my skill sets. But, here we are in Walt Disney's property, and of course magic is going to happen. And I make some wisecracking joke because everyone else that was there were people like yourselves, Disney rooted people. Even though you've never actually worked for the Walt Disney Company, you've made a career and a life out of it. You're a best-selling author. You travel internationally speaking about it. And, we're rubbing elbows with Disney legends and artisans and, Imagineers and animators that actually worked with Walt, and have first-person stories. And here I am, an English teacher from Vegas. And I remember making a wisecrack joke. And I said, it's ironic that I've made a career out of convincing teenagers to do the one thing that I've always been afraid to do. And that was to share my story and to write the book already. And like magic,
Well, I jumped all over that.
you're right. Like you were just honestly on cue and you pull out your business card and you hand it to me and you're like, well, when you're ready to write that book, give me a call. And I'm thinking, who's this guy think he is? And I look down and there's a picture of Jeff Barnes with his 2 books, twice best-selling author. I was like, oh, I guess this is kind of a good one to keep. So fast forward, I reach out to you, which ties right into the 4 C's. And I know you're going to talk more about that here shortly. But I had the courage to reach out and I'm like, well, what do I have to lose? Right. I've got nothing. I don't even have a single word on the page yet. And, fast forward again, that one contact turned into a following Zoom call within a week after you got back from your cruise. And then that opened the door to what would then become over half a year now of like daily mentoring and challenging my thinking and pouring into me as a writing coach and really just telling me, get off your park bench and do it already. Don't wait. Because of course I had all these excuses of why I couldn't do it. And, at the end of the day, none of them are really good. It's like,
Well,
I do it anyway.
I know that story because I've lived that story.
Yeah.
And we all think we're terminally unique, right?
Right.
My excuse is special. My story is special. No, it's just another story and another excuse to keep you stuck and
Mhm.
keep you on your park bench. I want to bring it a little bit more full circle than I think you even went in your article on Monday. So
Mm.
this started, right, with me giving you my business card. Whose job is it right now to redesign my business card? You hadn't thought about that, had you?
God, that's so true.
So I really just gave you my business card and said, you look like a really creative person and it's time for a redo. Can you help me with that in about 6-9 months? And here we are.
Shut up. That's so cool. Okay, well, now I know I'm writing about next week. But yeah, to go from being at Walt Disney's house, for the record, we were down at the bottom of his driveway waiting for the valet together.
Which is
Now,
very steep, by the way.
it's a miracle you didn't fall going down that sidewalk.
There you go.
Gee. Yeah, end of the night, we hadn't seen each other the whole night, which was bizarre. So it was just a crazy orchestrated series of events. And for me to meet you making a joke about how I'm, quote, just an English teacher, to then inviting you into my campus, speaking to students, which everybody at my school that's one of my students, which I teach over 100 a day, they all know Jeff Barnes. They all know the wisdom of Walt. They all want to know every Monday and Wednesday, what's the article about? When is the podcast coming out? Like, it's just been so cool to see these young adults, like the next generation of dreamers and doers, see right before their eyes what happens when you utilize and live out every day those 4 C's.
Based on Friday, I'm convinced we have more listeners in Henderson, Nevada than anywhere else in the world combined. So thanks, guys. You're
Right?
our biggest fans and biggest supporters. But, I think the biggest takeaway there, Kristin, is you got to get yourself out there.
Yeah.
And, we tell ourselves these stories and we repeat these patterns and we think we're in charge and we think we're in control. And control is an illusion.
Yeah.
And so, once you open up to the idea that cool things can happen and amazing things can happen if you just get yourself out there, yeah, your life's going to look very different in a week, a month, 6 months, and a year. And you're a testament to that. I've seen it happen in my life. I've seen it happen in other people's lives. Meanwhile, unfortunately, I know a lot of people who have gotten very comfortable with being unhappy.
Right.
And that has become their standard. That has become their norm. And they don't think it can change if for no other reason because it never changes.
And that's the thing. You can't wait for your life to be different for you to like feel different first. We tend to be like, oh, well, I'm going to work out when I feel like it, or I didn't work out because today I didn't feel like it. We've got that backwards. If you just take the emotion out of it and say, I don't feel like doing this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm uncomfortable and I'm going to do it anyway. Before you know it, incrementally, your life starts to change enough that you start to feel different. And
Mhm.
that's where the magic happens, I think.
I mean, everything was uncomfortable before it was comfortable. Even when
Absolutely.
you were a toddler and learning to walk, you probably don't remember this, but every step was a risk.
Yeah.
Every walk across the living room was fraught with peril.
Mm-hmm.
But you were so invested in learning and growing and maturing and developing and progressing, you didn't care. And
Right.
so at some point, we lose that edge and we just sort of sit back and we settle back and we just start doing the same thing over and over and over again. And we start measuring, you and I talked about this on Sunday, we start measuring not progression, but perfection. And if it can't
Right.
be perfect, don't bother.
Yep. And we stop before we even get started. And you know who I'm
Absolutely.
really thankful didn't do that? Is the very guy that you wrote about this week with Wednesdays with Walt. I mean, if you want to talk about a prime example of the 4 C's live and in the flesh, you covered it. So I'm going to let you take it from here on just what Wednesdays with Walt was all about and a little guy that that I think we all might know.
So, yeah, you had a big webinar this week, just got off it. Gosh, 650 signups. It was crazy. And
Awesome.
so I wanted to lean into that yesterday. And I retold Tom Nabbe's story. Disney folks know his story, but I want to just remind everyone, Tom grew up in Southern California and he's a 13-year-old kid who's riding bicycles and delivering newspapers while Disneyland is under construction. And he would go on to tell the story of how he would ride out to the park and sell his papers as workers would come off shift after school. And he would, make a little bit of extra money and have some pocket change. And, he was excited that the park was opening. He was excited to watch it get built in his backyard, literally his backyard.
Mhm.
And, when opening day rolled around, it wasn't for him or for his mom. They weren't the celebrities or, members of the press, the media, or the VIP that opening day was for, but they showed up regardless and, wanted to be part of where all the excitement was. And lo and behold, as they're standing outside the gates, Danny Thomas walks out and gives Tom and his mom his tickets. And so he got to be there on opening day because he simply showed up. And then the next day, he got hired to be a newspaper boy on Main Street. And this is back when, everything on Main Street was a third party vendor.
Right.
Because Walt barely had the money to open the park, let alone hotels and restaurants and shops. And so, the newspaper was part of a third party lease. And so Tom didn't work for Walt or for Disney per se. He worked
Mm.
for whoever the leaseholder was for selling newspapers. But soon enough, Tom learned that they were going to be opening Tom Sawyer Island out in the middle of Rivers America come summer of 1956. Tom's named Tom, and he is a dead ringer for Tom Sawyer. He's been kidded all of his life about how much he looks like Tom Sawyer. And so, with a lot of confidence and courage and consistency, he starts bugging Walt and says, hey, when you open that island, I'm going to be your Tom Sawyer.
I love that he had the guts to just go right
Can you imagine?
to
It's
Walt
crazy.
Disney
I
and
know.
say, "Hey, God."
Yeah. And so, Walt doesn't tell him no, but he gives him all the reasons for why anything is a better idea than hiring this 14-year-old kid to, stand out on the island and be Tom Sawyer.
Right.
Well, because of his constant and consistent pestering,
Mhm.
eventually he gets the call and says, hey, are you still interested in being Tom Sawyer? And he's like, absolutely.
Right?
And lo and behold, he gets the job.
Yeah.
And he would turn playing Tom Sawyer into a 50-year Disney legend career. And he wrote a book about it in 2024. from Disneyland's Tom Sawyer to Disney Legend. And it all started with, having the courage to show up, the confidence to pester Walt,
Yeah.
the consistency to do it over and over and over again, and the curiosity to wonder, what in the heck are they building in my backyard here? Right? I mean, he embodied all four of the four C's. And I love Tom. I've had the pleasure of interviewing him on several occasions, emailing him on a somewhat regular basis. We're going to try and get him on the podcast in the not
Yep.
too distant future. Looking forward to that. And just a great basis for what was a wonderful webinar this afternoon. And part of the takeaway for the webinar is I'm going to be teaching this summer online my History of Disneyland course. It's going to run for 8 weeks. It'll start the first Tuesday night in June, 6 p.m. Pacific, and we'll run for 8 weeks, and we'll have a community, right, of folks who are going to share Disney stories, Disney memories, Disney history. But then most importantly, we're going to take those stories and take that history and apply it to your life and your story and whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish right now. Because, it's great that happened for Tom, 71 years ago?
Right.
But what does it matter to you? What does it matter to me? We're going to use the course to help you figure that out. And again, we had 650 signups. The chat was just alive, fire
On fire.
today as we talked about curiosity and confidence, courage, and consistency. Even if you didn't join the webinar, we'll include a link for getting in on the class because it's not too late, and would love to have podcast listeners join us this summer.
And shameless plug on that. I do not get paid at all to say this. And I promise I won't, give him another black eye for this. But being under the guidance and leadership of Jeffrey Barnes, I can say with entire certainty that he is the professor, he is the teacher, he is the coach and the mentor that I always needed and wanted when I was younger, and spent many years of my life working for people that I wish ran and operated the way that you run and operate your daily life. And so if you have out there, if you guys have an opportunity to sign up for this course or any of the coaching opportunities with Jeff, again, I do not get paid to say this. He's going to love me regardless because I need to design his business cards. You got to do it. It will definitely be worth every penny that you spend. So what a game changer. So thank you.
In terms of my role as a coach, and I see myself in that role and wearing that hat when I'm teaching History of Disneyland, a coach is someone who takes you where you are to where you want to be, i.e. Cinderella's coach, right? That's our job. That's our role. That's our responsibility. And so if you're somewhere tonight and you want to be somewhere tomorrow, I would love to help you with that. But better yet, I would love to use the History of Disneyland course to help you with that. Sign up and we'll see you this summer.
Perfect. Thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you real soon.